Recording in progress.
Solon, Department of Agriculture, or is it Department of Agriculture?
Got two more at the table, hadn't spoken up. Linda.
Linda Lucky, Department of Agriculture.
Randy Reynolds, Department of Agriculture.
And we have some folks on Zoom. Y'all can sort yourself out and introduce yourselves.
I'm Ken Korth. I'm in Fayetteville representing the University of Arkansas Division of Agriculture.
Caleb Wall representing the rice growers.
Can't hear.
Maybe not.
That's there.
Very good. We'll assume that they hear us. I believe we have a quorum without.
Travis Center looks like he's there too.
Yeah. Okay.
I just got mine where I can hear. I'm sorry. I'm at my house.
Thank you. Thank you. Has everyone had a chance to look over the minutes of our March 18th meeting? If so, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. There's a motion and a second to approve and accept the minutes of our March 18th meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Very good, they are approved. Dr. Korth, would you like to give us a report from pest control?
Yes, good morning. So the Pest Control Committee met on May 8th at the request of property owner, Mr. Travis Martin. And so I want to give you a rundown kind of what we discussed on that day. So Mr. Martin acquired a termite contract on his property through a real estate transaction, and during remodeling found damage. Some of the damage was associated with termites, some associated with moisture and ants. Mr. Martin contacted the termite contract provider, Adams Pest Control, and after inspecting the damage, Adams Pest took the position that the damage was hidden and not visible during the original inspection. Therefore, they were not responsible for disclosing the damage or making repairs. Mr. Martin disagreed and contacted the department requesting an inspection and an assessment. Department staff inspected, but due to the state of deconstruction at the time of the inspection, they could not determine if the damage had been visible during Adams' initial inspection. So department inspectors did determine that there was evidence that the property may have not been treated according to pest control standards. So department staff issued a notice to make treatment-related corrections to Adams Pest Control. Mr. Martin did not allow Adams Pest Control back on the property to complete the corrections. During the committee meeting, Mr. Martin voiced his concerns about how he was displeased with the work Adams Pest Control performed, but he did not want them back on his property. Mr. Martin also noted that he found inaccurate information associated with treatment methods noted on the contract he received from Adams. Representatives from Adams Pest Control stated that the employee that issued the report is no longer employed, and they are not sure why he made the errors. The Adams representatives stated they're willing to retreat the entire property. Mr. Martin stated he has already hired another pest control firm to treat the building and does not want to do business with Adams Pest Control. Mr. Martin stated that he wanted to see the department provide more oversight and monitoring of pest control businesses. So from the pest control committee, there was no action was needed to be taken. And if there are questions, maybe either Scott or Mark Stoll could address those. But otherwise, I would like to ask for a motion to accept the Pest Control Committee meeting minutes for May 8th, 2025.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to accept the meeting minutes from the May 8th, 25 pest control meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Very good.
So the only other business from the pest control program that's before you today are the exam results, and you should have those in front of you. So I would ask for a motion to accept the pest control examination results for the months of February through April 2025.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the exam results from March and April of 25. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Very good. They are accepted. Dr. Forth, if there's nothing else.
There, no other business from the Pest Control Committee. Thank you.
Mr. Duncan.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Our committee met on May 27th. The first order of business was they received an update of 2025 case files from Susie. We were introduced to Mr. Corey Seitz, who's our legal counsel here for the Department of Ag. And he requested that the review be postponed. That the review of the proposed enforcement actions to be deferred to today. And I'm going to turn this over to Scott Braid for further enforcement actions and talk.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. Very good. Good morning, everybody. Well, I believe all of you received what is a spreadsheet associated with several pages of summaries behind it. You should have all got that in your email yesterday and have it in front of you today. What this is these are enforcement cases we are proposing to settle. Items 1 through 9, items 1 through 14, which amount to 9 different cases, are level 1 minor violations that we've issued warning letters on. I would ask that y'all consider approving items 1 through 14 with a warning letter. And that is an appropriate enforcement action based on level 1 minor violations. So if y'all want to go ahead and vote on that, I would appreciate that, and we'll move on to the rest.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item 1 through 14 and follow the staff recommendation of warning letters on these items. Any discussion?
The only discussion I have is some of these go back to 2017.
Well, this is on items, oh, well, one of them does go back to 17.
Yeah, the very first one.
Okay.
The rest of them are 20, 21, 22, but Scott, this is what you're saying, this is normally how this is. Why was it not handled this way previous, this is 8 years?
There's a lot of different reasons. Susie can probably help me out here. Some of these have been maybe hung up because of a previous case before it not being settled. If they're level, and they're probably a first violation. I really don't have an explanation as to why one goes back to 17, most of them are 20, 21, and 22. But they are level 1 minor violations, and the typical action there is a warning.
Typically, there's no fines associated with this, but these, okay.
Scott, I have one question. This, and this may not be the correct penalty matrix, but is this the one we're supposed to use for guidance that's on the back of the, PES committee minutes?
I believe so.
It looks like they all carry a minimum. So I'm just wondering what type of, and maybe I'm reading it wrong. I haven't. Oh, no, never mind. Disregard that. I'll get that.
Scott, for us, new guys like Jared and I, it might be helpful outside the meeting to understand how these work. People have to come up, have some kind of orientation on all this, especially on the level 1, 2, 3, fine, and the more egregious and how it works.
And again, there is various levels of violations, and within that, there's minors and majors. And that penalty matrix you just referenced, it does give guidance as to the particular violation and what are the options available for the status of that violation, whether it's a minor, major, or first level, second level. And historically, we've always followed and worked within that, but there have been times in the past, and I don't know the details, Susie can help me, but there have been times in the past when we've experienced high levels of complaints or extraordinary situations where the board, the plant board staff and the plant board have settled some mitigating circumstances.
Very good. Any other discussions? Okay, hearing none. Let's vote on the motion to approve items 1 to 14. All in favor of their approval, acceptance of the staff recommendation, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Very good. The motion passes.
Thank you. So moving on, we have items 15 through 226. These are violations, and these violations count to about 71 cases if I counted right. So these are the ones we briefly discussed at the last committee meeting, or excuse me, at the last board meeting, when I talked to y'all about our backlog and all of the various circumstances that led us to where we are today. What we're proposing is to resolve cases from 17 to 21. And pick back up at 2022, moving forward with our enforcement program operating under its normal operational procedure. The first group you have just approved were warning letters. There has been some confusion in terminology, and I apologize for that. I think I probably confused staff and Susie a little bit. There's this terminology they've worked with for years, and a warning letter is part of that. And a warning letter is an enforcement action in and of its own. But what we have proposed with the remaining cases is settlement agreements. And the settlement agreement is to settle in for a warning, not a warning letter. It's a settlement agreement where they agree to settle to accept a warning based on each case, and the evidence in the case does support violations. But we're proposing to settle them for a warning, to reset our program up to 2022. And moving forward, the intent is to resolve and work the enforcement cases within that enforcement policy. That enforcement policy, there's some inconsistencies in it. If you really read it, it's 20-something years old or older. And it is my opinion that the developers and the writers of that policy, I don't think they ever thought or foresaw a situation like we've been in since 2017. And I don't think there are other states that have been severely impacted by dicamba, and that's what this is all about, and have experienced high levels of complaints. But I don't think anybody has experienced it on the level we have. And like I told y'all last time, and I will say it till I leave here, it has ground up this staff, field and in-house. And they are the last ones that are responsible or should be blamed for this situation. So we've looked at it with our legal team in-house, and we feel like we feel confident that that policy allows us to propose to you and you to approve based on our proposal and our guidance, mitigating cases to resolve them, especially when there are extenuating circumstances, and I believe this fits that. So I'm asking you to consider approving these. And we'll do whatever y'all want us to do, but we're asking that you approve them based on our recommendation, our legal guidance, and reset this program back into a more manageable situation. I don't want to leave the next director or this staff with all this, if I can help. Questions? Yes, sir.
So Scott, you talked about the matrix maybe being 20 years old, but these egregious penalties are something we created in the last
2019. I think the current.
So that,
yes.
Yeah, that's kind of a current. Can't blame that on something that was put in the past. So yeah, and so my only question is, it's a legal question, and I'm sure y'all have already covered it. Just so if you could just tell us. Our council sees no issue with handling those egregious cases inconsistently.
Well,
Over the past 5 years.
As I understand it, a settlement is a settlement is a settlement. So if somebody comes back and Corey might need to address this himself, and if you need to tell me stop, tell me stop.
No.
But it's my understanding from a legal standpoint, if I settled in 2020 or 21 a case for a certain amount, that's my settlement. And then if now a similar case settles for a warning, that's their settlement. I don't know if it is a legal footing to come back, but you all know people can sue you for anything. I can't sit here and tell y'all that none of this is gonna come back in a lawsuit later. I'm going into retirement, but this will hang over me for years. I know that.
And I'm sure y'all did it, but y'all did vent that.
We did discuss that. Corey's been a prosecutor for 20-something years. There's probably not anything he hasn't seen, and he'll be the first to tell you, you can get sued for anything.
Yep.
We feel like, and the governor's office has reviewed this, and we feel like this is defensible. We can defend this decision. And we feel like if it does turn into a lawsuit and it gets overturned, it will not be because it will not be because we intentionally or there's no wrongdoing here. We feel like we're within our rights, we're within our policy, to make the decision. We're trying to make the best decision we can in a situation that just doesn't allow, there's no good decisions here. There's no good options here.
The worst one is to spend time on it.
Well, the worst one, correct. Can you guys come down here and have a hearing once a week?
Yeah.
Me too.
You know, it's been a logistical situation.
So just to make sure, our matrix, we're not held to it. That's just sort of our guideline. And we're allowed to vary from that.
Those are your guidelines, the enforcement policy or enforcement rule does, provide for, what I'm looking for here, in the prosecutor world, we would call it a departure, a modification based on mitigating or aggravating circumstances. And the proposal here is consistent with Arkansas law, does not violate Arkansas law.
And for your question about the egregious penalties, that penalty matrix is up to 25,000. So it doesn't really give you a baseline, which you could argue that base is zero.
Kyle, to take your point a little further, and we discussed this at length in the, I've discussed Corey's our attorney here. My concern was we're setting precedent here for others to follow, and that this could come back to us. My question is, why can't we take this to the Attorney General and get an opinion? He is our attorney, our ultimate attorney. Corey's our attorney here in the house, but the Attorney General represents all of us on this board and our staff as well. And to me, that give us a little, if it comes back, and I'm not saying it's gonna come any differently than what Corey and Scott have just talked about, but it just, I mean, this has been going on for 8 years. Another 30 days to wait for an opinion from the Attorney General. And I've talked to the Attorney General about it. And he thought it was a good, at least what I was able to explain to him. Good idea just to look at. I just don't see where waiting another 30 to 45 days would make a major difference in this. Just to get that, I would say, a firewall or better protection for all of us. Because this is, I mean, there's a lot, if y'all see it, there's a lot of egregious violations. I don't know what the total amount of this is. Probably several $100,000s that we're just gonna wipe off the books. And I try to go at, and I don't know how many times these people have done it before. It just, I know there's been a lot of FOI requests I've received. I haven't made the request, but people have sent me those. So I know there's a lot of eyeballs on this, looking at this all over the state. And I don't know what TPA or anybody else is looking at, but I don't see what the harm in having the AG to look at this.
Did we, are we gonna have the warnings and the warning labels, everything on file for a time, or is this it? It's sold out after this?
Most of our, when an individual is found guilty of a violation or is found in violation and an enforcement action takes place, it's on their record for 3 years. And then it's off. Yeah, so any of these older than 3 years, yes, it would basically automatically come off of their record.
So on the level 1 warning, are they on probation? So you issue that, they agree to that, you issue that. And are they on probation for that 3 years?
They are, essentially it's probation. We don't technically call it that, but if they get another likewise violation within that 3 years, then that violation automatically starts at level 2 or 3 or more. So they progress up the enforcement matrix for repeat offenses.
So do we know, since these have been issued, or have any of these people, like to say in the last 2 years?
It's possible. I don't know that. I don't have it in front of me, but it is possible that some of them have pending cases. We still have a process, or we're going to work. Yeah.
So if case, would that not affect that?
It
probation?
would, and that is one of the reasons why we're so hung up on current and recent cases, is we have all these old unresolved cases. And if these old unresolved cases can get resolved, and if they go away, we know where to start at 22, but as long as these are unresolved, we don't. So if we go back and prosecute and handle these however they're handled, but until these are handled, we don't know how to proceed forward with repeat offenders.
Yeah.
And I do agree, at some point, if we reset, then there are going to be current people that may be at a second or a third level that are going to come back to the first level. I don't know how to avoid that, honestly. The only other option is to take all these, start back over, send back settlement agreements for whatever civil penalties, and most of them probably will not agree to it, and then we're back to, we won't hearings.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, but they've already agreed to what you put
Yes,
out there.
Yes.
So then there's that.
there's that.
Yeah.
We went ahead and proceeded on that. I felt like when we talked about it back in March, I felt like I got good feedback from y'all that y'all were, most of you all were supportive of the thinking and policy. And so we went ahead and sent these agreements out, and they agreed to them.
But we'll have a couple things. To that point, that's what we've always done. Even with our fines, any of our settlements, they agree to them before we approve them.
Typically, yes.
That we could, in some instance, not approve it and say, hey, we know you agreed to this, but it wasn't accepted. It's no variance from what we're doing.
That is no variance. What we bring before this board is either a hearing or an already agreed upon proposal to settle.
I got a couple questions for Corey. One, is the warning, the language of it, is it essentially the same as the warning letter, or does it say, hey, you're getting a warning, but next time that we're stepping it up to a different level?
It is not the same.
Okay.
And in fact, it gives them the option to reject that offer. It's almost like a plea offer. They can reject it and they can get it. It's different from a warning letter.
Okay. And then I want to make sure I understood what Scott said correctly. Their clock, their 3-year clock, would begin when we accept this, not based on the date of the violation.
No, it begins the day of the violation.
So then it's done.
Correct.
So what's the point? Yeah.
It's dismiss, or it's go back to our enforcement policy, and if they can agree to a civil penalty, then that's fine, or most of them are probably gonna wanna have hearings. We're back to the logistical situation that we've been dealing with all along. It's just the level of hearing requests. And how many hearings can y'all have? I mean, can y'all be here if we have 50 that want hearings, at one point we had over 100. I mean, that's one a week for 2 years. One day a week, you can't call in a hearing, you gotta be here. It's very, like I said, there's no good answer here. There's no good way forward.
Any other discussion?
I'll comment on those hearings. It's been a few years now, but I sat through like 2 of them. They take up the day.
They could take up the day. You just never know.
Mm-hmm.
And then they can be appealed. Whatever decision y'all come out of there with, they can appeal. And then if they appeal to court and it goes there with the court, then we'll probably appeal. When previous lawyers and I don't know how many sessions we had gaming out, what we're gonna do with this. And, we always saw these scenarios where we could just be in this logistical nightmare of how many cases in the pipeline between the board hearing, appeal to court, our appeal beyond that. It's mind boggling. how many different ways it could go. And some of these may settle, we've settled quite a few, or we've been able to, reach an agreement on a civil penalty. But there are many of these that wouldn't even discuss settlement with us. They basically just said, talk to my lawyer. There's 4 field guys sitting back there right now. I mean, they got to the point where every time they went on a farm, it was just like, I'm not signing anything, call my lawyer. And, I really don't know what to advise y'all. Okay.
Just, I want to go back to Reynolds' question. Why can't the agreement restart the clock at this time of the agreement? Why does it have to go back to the day of the violation?
You know where that provision is?
I do not know where that provision is.
I mean, they can agree to anything, can't they? I mean, they could agree to that, and
That could have been written into the agreement, but it wasn't. It's my understanding policy that it's easy to call it a probationary period. We really don't call it that, but just for this meeting's purposes, so everybody can follow, we'd call it probation. That typically, and correct me if I'm wrong, Susie, but that typically, that clock starts at the time of violation.
the second one then is, what is the downside to the 1 month attorney general? Is there a downside to that?
I don't know one.
Yeah.
That's what y'all request.
I mean, I understand the need to get this off of staff's desk, because like you say, they're going back to 17. That doesn't put any more on our staff, does it? I mean, they're not gonna need to work with the attorney general on, not that they wouldn't have a question, but it's not gonna tie them up for that time, I would.
It's not waiting on the AG's opinion, if that's what you're talking about. If the determination is made, these aren't accepted, it will put it back on staff. They'll have to rewrite these and start sending out settlement agreements again, all of them. See where how that goes.
And could you not segregate it out dependent on the level? The violation level?
Well,
Do you mean to
we
say?
have, if you notice over there, that there are level 2 majors and level 4 majors, and some egregious, all tied into some of the same cases. So you could have one case that has a violation that has one of each of those.
But are you asking, just so that I'm clear on what you're asking, are you saying, well, we could give a warning to the majors, but the level 4 egregious, we will
Right,
some other penalty? That's your question.
Yeah.
That is an option too. That would require, more settlement agreements being rewritten and sent back out.
yeah. So the more.
There's an
serious ones
option
be
to combine. I
addressed.
mean, none of that is, there historically, we have taken cases that may have multiple violations and combined them into one violation, where you may see some in here that may have 4 or 5 record keeping violations, and for settlement purposes, we might combine that to one violation. So there are multiple formulas and methods at your disposal or your recommendation to resolve these, and there's probably not a situation in the past where we haven't used one or more of those. Like I said, I think there's even been times where a lot, when we had an overload of cases where they were settled with, I don't know the terminology, but they required, the violator to come in for training. May not have included a civil penalty, but you had to come in and complete a certain level of training that staff or U of A offered, so proof of completing that training, and your violation was considered done. So there's been a lot of different methods of resolving situations. And there have been backlogs in situations in the past. I don't remember them in detail. Susie probably would, but I don't think there's ever been one situation like this.
I have one last question. Are we gonna wait another 7 or 8 years before this is addressed? On other violations from going this way
No.
forward?
If we're gonna do what y'all ask us to do, they're gonna do what y'all ask them to do. If this is approved and we reset to 22, Staff, the intended staff of the meeting gonna pick up 2022 and start working those cases through the current. And
I just want to make sure everybody online has an opportunity to speak up. Feel free to speak up if you have a comment in our discussion period.
you know, I'm looking at some numbers now and, from 2022 to 2025, there's about 225 cases to be worked.
Okay, any other discussion? For accepting, against accepting? Have we heard enough? I don't have a motion, but
I'd make that we make a motion that we delay and take.
hang on 1 second. I just want to make sure. Did someone try to speak up online? Matt?
Well, I mean, yeah, I would just, and I'm out of town and I'm sorry. I mean, from what Mr. Scott's saying, we really don't have a whole lot of choice unless we just want to about halfway wreck this program, because how many did he just say we have that we're not going to do this with? So it's a mountain we've got to tear down some kind of way. That's just my opinion.
Okay. Thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. President.
Sure. I'll make the motion that we ask the Attorney General to review this for us and get his opinion. And
As it's being proposed.
as
today.
it's being proposed today. Thank you, Kyle. As it's being proposed today.
You said a second? All right, so we have a motion and a second that we send item 15 through 226 to the Attorney General to get his sign off on the recommendation that has been made by staff. Is that correct? Everybody clear on this?
I've got a question.
Okay.
Will this motion make it become effective
Make-
if the Attorney General blesses it?
I suppose he could offer another
He could.
thing and then we'd be back to,
Well, we could,
Okay,
we could word our motion that if the Attorney General signs off, then it's approved.
Can I?
Yeah.
What you're gonna get back from the AG is an opinion.
okay,
So what I suggest is, once you get that opinion back, you just have another meeting.
I agree.
Yeah, revisit.
okay, that's what I,
so to be clear, our motion with a second is that we send these cases that we're discussing, 15 through 226, simply to the Attorney General to gain his opinion on the matter. Clear? Okay. All in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. The motion passes.
Scott, don't go anywhere.
I'm still saying you won't miss nothing. Should I just stay up?
All right, the next was the committee received an update on the feral hog rule. Ms. Nichols stated that a proposed rule has been drafted, however, during the process it was discovered that the existing rules need to be updated and request to be deferred to the full board meeting.
So we do have a draft in motion. Unfortunately, it wasn't ready today. We were hoping to have it ready for you all today. We've encountered, so when we update some of these old rules, one of the things we encounter is some formatting issues. These old rules are a patchwork of a lot of different programs, WordPerfect, Word, and maybe something for that I'm not familiar with, and we start editing them and typing in them, and we've had to take some time where we've had to retype some of them. And we're also going to do some language cleanup, and it will not be anything y'all haven't seen before. When we do update a rule, we like to take that opportunity to go in and clarify the role between the plant board and the department. Because in the old days, there was the plant board you all, and then there was the plant board the agency. So these rules frequently reference plant board does this, plant board does that. But in reality, some of what the rules are referencing is an action or an administrative function of the department. So that required a lot of cleaning. Long story short, the governor has it, the governor's team has it, they're looking at it, and they don't see a problem with it. They'll get it back to us and we'll get it back to y'all. We can do it in the Zoom meeting. Y'all had a lot of discussion over this at the last
Yeah.
meeting. And what we've incorporated into that draft, the meat of it, other than just the cleanup, are the recommendations y'all provided, considering game and fish's concerns. Everything y'all brought forward, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Susie, we've incorporated that into the draft, all the bear considerations for black bears and all of that. So when you see it, you won't see anything that you haven't already talked about, and I'm sure you'll be good with it. We just don't have it for you today. Apologies. But that should be coming soon again. I think y'all can probably handle with the same meeting in the next week or so when it's ready. Very good.
Don't go anywhere. The committee received an update of the possibility of a dicamba 24C label for this year. At this time, no 24C request has been submitted to the agency, and no dicamba in crop use product will be available this summer. Committee also received an update on the outreach regarding dicamba. And we asked the director, Bray, asked Scott how is he gonna get the word out that dicamba in any form is not to be used.
No word on 24C or any product coming available. My guess is it's gonna be. So, as far as outreach, we have pushed out some messages through our marketing. We did that this week, I believe. It's gone out through press releases. It's gone out through our U of A contacts, I believe, and then it's being pushed out social media. Nathan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you agreed to share that. Did you? Didn't we talk?
I think our communications group is waiting to communicate with you.
Gotcha.
But so I know they did see what y'all put out.
Gotcha. So that's in motion. We have worked on the ability to group text, and that's in play. So if it's not happening today, within a very short period of time, staff in the pesticide group will be able to group text, and they'll be able to target different licensee categories, or they'll be able to group text out to everybody, not text, I'm sorry, email. Text blasting, we want. I can hear Susie down there.
Stand up.
The text blasting we talked about is not in play yet. I've discovered that is a pretty big thing because you gotta get more or less permission from the receiver, text them. It can be done, but we're still discussing that, but we are emailing. And then we've had our field staff. They've gone around and they've talked to farmers. They have visited several big farmers who they know are planting non-tolerant crops, and they've gone and talked to the farmers around them. They reported to me yesterday that the farmers they're interacting with, they know there's not a product last year. They've informed farmers and they've even mapped out areas that they shared with other farmers. So,
Scott, since you have your field staff here, or some of them, would it be appropriate for them to talk about some of the things that you talked to us about, as reported at the last meeting, about their concerns of stopping and addressing people if they're inspecting tractors or tank rigs, and the concerns that they have? I think you used the term that they don't, our field staff doesn't carry guns, and which is a pretty strong statement. Kind of tells you that. And so we know there's not going to be legal product out, and there's no product that's from the manufacturer. So the only stuff that, if it's legally sprayed this year, is going to be the worst of the worst, and it's going to be everywhere.
well, they're certainly, I hate to put them on the spot. They're pretty shy. They're all back there. Their faces turning red. I'll take the lead, and if David may want to jump in, but what we discussed is, some of the things we experienced in the past with this product. We've tried a lot of different things over the years. We've tried patrolling, we've tried everybody go out, see what you can find. We've responded to every complaint we've ever received. But one of the concerns we've had is we did get into some serious security concerns. We have had a couple of inspectors threatened. We've had one that visually saw what he believed to be a misapplication happening, and he walked out in the field and three, and this is one of our guys that's about 115 pounds soaking wet, and three big fellas came out and they threatened to physically, they told me to leave. You know, again, we've had instances where
That's unacceptable. I mean,
I agree.
is there not, can we not go to state police, Wes, and get help from the governor's office? I mean, to protect our guys from trying to do their job. And they're being threatened with their livelihood, with their life. We can't let the inmates run the asylum. I mean, we gotta have protection for our guys, otherwise they can't do their job.
I agree.
Is there any way we can get from the governor's office, some state police or somebody to help the folks?
We have frequently called local law enforcement for different instances, and so we've got a law enforcement thing, we've got our chief here, Billy Black, and so I think it's similar. I think if there are opportunities where we can get out there, sometimes the situation de-escalates before they can get out there, and then well, they say we're going to call a lawyer, and so we try to manage as best as we can. But to your point, it is unacceptable behavior, and we've got to be responsive to that.
Well, safety of our people are primary. We can't put them in harm's way. At the same time, we can't let all this stuff be flying all over these counties. This chemical, wherever it touches, it's going to kill. And we've got to find some solution. Maybe these guys have a solution to the problem. I would be a little bit apprehensive about using local, because you probably get some friendlies there, the other guys, or at least the intimidation. But I don't know, we'll turn to you guys. Do y'all have any suggestions or ideas? I mean, y'all on the front line every day with this.
Well, we have been doing a lot of outreach, like Scott said. We've gone to some of the farmers that's got enlist beans. We've got maps. I've got a guy sending me some maps today. He's a big grower. He's got about 3,000 acres. We have gone around some of the area farmers and said, look, here's some enlist beans here. You know, this is what's going to happen. We're going to go out, and it's going to be complaint. So what we'll do is, if there's a complaint filed, which we've got some coming in today, we've already got some complaints coming in. We're going to surround the fields, and if there's fields around there that's been applied with dicamba, we're going to take a sample to prove that it's dicamba, and then we're going to go ask for records, which they're not going to have, and then we're going to go to the chemical dealer, and we're going to find out where they bought it. We've already contacted most of the big chemical dealers, like a Helena's and AgriLife. They're sending all their generic dicamba back, so there's not going to be very many sales after April 15th. We have a lot of internet sales.
That doesn't mean mail.
No, they bought it way before time.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we did a lot of outreach with the chemical dealers and saying, look, you know, we're going to be out here checking. So they said, look, we're not selling that up April 15th. So everybody's stocked up.
Mm-hmm.
That's the case. But we are going to do a complaint driven, and we're going to, if we go out there and we see a complaint, we're going to start looking around, and we're going to document every field that we think had dicamba put on. And we've had inspectors run off the road. Guy come out there, cussed us out, called the sheriff, cussed the sheriff out. We've had drones following us around. They've got chat groups that says, hey, your inspectors in this part of the county, there's about 15 or 20 of these people in this chat group. We've had that happen.
That's hard.
We had, it was reported to me yesterday that there was a complaint. One dicamba related, but there was a complaint. An inspector responded to a complaint, and when he got out there, the person said, I want to withdraw it, I don't want to pursue it. He said, I'm worried, I got kids and family. He said, I'm just worried. So bottom line is, we have to double them up at least. So we go essentially from 30 response teams to 15. And I even with that, you know, and more prevalent than the threats and that is just, most of them will just lawyer up. They'll just say, get off the farm, I'm not signing anything, call my lawyer. And then for the inspectors to continue that investigation, we have to either get law enforcement, or we have to convince them that we do have the authority to come on there to take samples, to review records. It sets the investigative process back. But we have instructed them, you know, if they tell you to leave the farm, leave, call us. we'll give you guidance on how you pursue and how you go back. But if you have to get law enforcement to go with you, then that's what you gotta do. But, you know, my position and Wes's position has always been, don't stand there and confront.
No.
De-escalate, and if you just gotta leave, leave, because their safety and their well-being is first and foremost.
Absolutely.
And y'all all agree with that. Again, you know, it has been a unprecedented, overwhelming situation that I don't think anybody ever realized or dreamed or thought Arkansas agriculture and Arkansas farmers would be in this situation. And in my opinion, the people that fix this are the ones doing it. People have got to get back to the point where they respect their neighbor and they work with their neighbor and they farm side by side. In Arkansas, there's completely different crops and technologies grown dirt road across from each other. And there's no way to do that without everybody respecting each other's right, conduct their business the way they want to conduct their business. And you can't regulate that mindset or that behavior in these people.
Well, we can't back up from it either. We cannot let the fear of lawyering up deter us from following the law and what we're going to do.
I agree.
But
I do think going forward, this board needs to be prepared to kick this enforcement, whether we settle these and start fresh at 22, or whether they advise us to go back and start with these, whatever. I think this board needs to be prepared that to get this enforcement program back running hard. There are going to be hearings.
Yeah, Dicamba is not going to be the last issue, that last chemical that comes up that does this. We got paraquat right now in the pine trees in South Arkansas. I mean, on the Forestry Commission as well. We're seeing the results of those tests come back. It's about 75% paraquat, 25% dicamba. So, yeah, our job is not to pick winners or losers. Our job is to follow what the regulations are and give the help to the staff and enforcement as much as we can. And that's what we got to go to bat for. This has got to stop. This is bad what's going on. You're right. I mean, my 45, I started farming in September 1980 when I came back from college. I never dreamed that we'd be here in this country. It's some 2,4-D stuff, T back in those days, and some 2,4-D, but nothing to this level.
It looks like that we're weakening our case by doing this.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So when it comes up again, they're gonna want to warn it.
Yeah, sure they are. Absolutely. Anything else? Scott?
No, sir.
Okay.
Unless y'all have more questions.
Sure.
To what you said, the concern, various concerns about setting a precedent, I think with AD, Attorney General, rather, looking at it, regardless of his opinion, would the board at that time say, we're going to, Al said, we're going to start that 22, or there's still going to be that clock going? That would be my question. I would assume that would be something at the next meeting or the called meeting based on the AG's opinion. And along those same lines, that is concerning anyone in danger. Are there any cases or complaints filed with I got to believe, if someone threatens an umpire on a Little League baseball field, that's a heightened occurrence, a heightened penalty, as opposed to me being mad at my neighbor for throwing trash in my yard. Is there something legal that would be a heightened offense, or would this body or the Department of Ag take that and go forward with that if it occurs again to protect them? I'm not, as George said, I'm not on one side or the other, but as far as the security and safety of our staff and the people in the field, that's of utmost importance.
I think that's where you transition from a regulatory issue to a legal issue. So far, we haven't filed or pressed charges against anybody, but that, in my opinion, would be the option and the way to go if those threats continue or escalate like.
And to be clear, I wasn't, absolutely, we're not, that's not the job of that, but I didn't know what that case, if someone was threatened or implied, hey, that should be handed off to the appropriate agency to take that over. I'm not making a motion, I'm just sort of asking and getting clear on that.
Sure. What we need to hear. If it, anybody got any other questions? All right, one last thing, and you can now send it. The next one's gonna be for Wes. Matt, I think it was, no, Matt, you're on the phone, but I think Matt, you asked this question last time, which was a good question. Right at the end of our committee meeting about make America MAHA, that it make America healthy again. And we've seen that Secretary Kennedy has come out and targeted some of our farm pesticides, Roundup and others. And Matt, I think, asked, are we going to take a stance on that? And we've referred it back to Wes. Wes, as you know, is the president of the National Association of this. Wes, do you have some comments? No.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate that. And I'll be fairly brief, but I do think it's Mr. Miles asked a good question at the committee meeting on just kind of what's going on with that commission report. And so it was released on, I think, I actually have the date. There's a president's executive order that goes back to February 13th, which kind of commissioned the Make America Healthy again, commissioned, and the report came out just very recently. So it's 68 pages. I don't know if anyone's read it or seen it. We help share that if you would like a copy of it. But Mr. Guntham's point, like it did have some things in there that were concerning for a lot of the ag industry, in particular. Glyphosate and atrazine were two products mentioned specifically on potential negative health impacts. And so there's been a lot of ag industry associations, Farm Bureau, soybean associations, a lot of folks that have expressed comments and concerns with the commission report, and just trying to make sure that the commission follows the science on that. So a lot of feedback from those entities to the commission. The commission has a lot of several people on there. NASA is also one of those, National Association of State Departments of Agriculture, just from our role, very, very similar to what the plant board does in working with some of these products and broader. It isn't just about, if you look at the report, it's 68 pages and it covers a whole lot of things. So just from our role, from the State Department of Agriculture perspective across the country on not trying to be difficult with the administration, just saying we understand the goals. We admire those goals. Everyone wants to make America healthy. We want to be part of that. Let us be at the table as we talk about some of the science on why producers use certain things and how those can be used in a safe and effective way. So NASA submitted a letter on June 2nd. Really, again, not trying to throw stones, but just saying let's be part of that conversation. I know Ms. Robin Ralston shared some comments, and we'll certainly help share those as well. So I think the comment from Mr. Miles was, how are we responding? How's the board responding to some of these things? And I would just ask if you have something that you want to have included, we'd be happy to help share that and be part of that conversation. So just a quick update, but happy to take any questions if anybody has it.
Question.
Thank you. Thank you again, Matt, for that question next time. Chairman, that's the end of my report. And I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes from the May 27th, 2025 Pesticide Committee meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the minutes of the May 27th Pesticide Committee meeting. Any discussion on this? No? All in favor? All opposed, like sign? Thank you. And I would just comment something Scott said, that it really does boil down to a person deciding to make the right choice for their neighbor as well as themselves. And I think we have to consider, and I don't have a dog in the fight, let's say, I'm not coming down on one side or the other. But if we choose and we apply to this group differently, we still have to collect. We didn't even talk about all the old stuff that we hadn't collected and what happens if we go after that. And I don't think we're tied to doing this thing forever in the future. I think that, we do have options, just like we decide not to follow this recommended matrix, we can do something different. So, anyway. Ms. Ralston, I think you might have a report for us.
It's not gonna be near as exciting as what we got.
Good.
But just as important. The Bureau of Standards Committee, we met Tuesday, May 20th, via Zoom. And the staff presented 74 civil penalties to the committee for review and recommendation to the board. Attachment 1, the 67 for expired decal. And table 1 for misrepresentation of pricing in table 2. 6 for water contamination in the fuel on table 3, and that's 6 offenses. And the committee voted to present 74 penalties to the plant board for final approval. I'd like to make a motion to approve the Bureau of Standards Committee recommendations to accept the civil penalties actions.
Second. We have a motion and a second to accept the files, enforcement actions presented by the Bureau of Standards. Is there any discussion on this? Okay. All in favor of accepting those, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Good.
Okay, we have a part of the other business. There was an email request to reduce the civil penalty of 350 in case BS 25-0143 on Bassett Food and Fuel in Bassett, Arkansas. The committee voted to present the staff's recommendation to reduce the civil penalty from $350 to $100 to the plant board for final approval. I'd like to make the motion to approve the Bureau of Standards Committee recommendations to reduce the civil penalty in case BS 25-0143.
Second.
Got a motion and a second regarding case BS 25-0143. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Passes.
And then the Bureau of Standards staff recommendation to withdraw case 25-0181 and case 25-0182 from civil penalty assessment to Cherry Street Food Mart and Pine Bluff. The committee voted to present a recommendation to the plant board for final approval. I'd like to make a motion to approve the Bureau of Standards Committee recommendation to withdraw case BS 25-0181 and case BS 25-0182.
Second.
Motion and a second, and I have a question. Just to be clear, your motion is that we do not give final approval, correct?
No, to give final approval.
To give final.
To withdraw.
To withdraw. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor of withdrawing the recommendation of?
No.
Okay.
No. We're asking for the recommendation to withdraw these case 25-0181 and 25-0182 from the civil penalty assessment.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So we're going to withdraw from the civil penalty.
Yeah.
On BS 25-0181, BS 25-0182. All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Very good.
Okay.
Passes.
And lastly, I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes of May 20th, 2025 of the Bureau of Standards Committee meeting.
Second. Got a motion and a second to accept the minutes of May 2025 of the Bureau of Standards. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, it is.
Mr. Chairman, I have a quick question. These civil penalties, where do they end up? When I was a game and fish commissioner, they went to an education every county got that and could use it for education, didn't come back to the commission. Where do our penalties here and all penalties have?
Scholarship.
It does go to scholarship. It's the same thing.
Correct, Wes? There's 4 scholarships. Support.
Okay, good. And another question, Scott, is when were these penalties set? What, you know, I mean, they've been in 10, 20 years or?
The Bureau penalties?
Yes.
2005.
2020 years. So is that something we should look at? I mean.
It's up to you as a board.
Okay.
I want to address adjusting them.
Okay, that's all.
Is it a rule or is it law? Okay. Are those penalties set in legislation or are they set in rule? It's a law. It's a law.
It's a statute.
Right, yeah.
Also, legislators.
That would be something.
Yeah. Okay. Good luck with that.
Okay. Mr. Sam Stuckey, I believe you'll have a low level eradication report for us.
I do, Mr. Chairman. Our subcommittee met here, May 6th. And we had this renewal of our insurance, a problem. It wasn't that we did anything wrong and lost our insurance. It was that the person that was writing this lost the ability to write the policy we had. And Regina had to shop for another supplier, another insurer. And to my knowledge, that's been done.
Yes, sir.
We were getting close to a deadline where they would be able to operate their vehicles or their ATVs or anything without getting that done, and we didn't get much notice. That's been done. Also, we had 3 case files that we took action on. The first one was Lee Wilson Company, and they had one small producer that they just overlooked getting the letter that the certificate saying this person had paid his assessment. And there's minutes from our meeting that show, you know, the size of the problem, and that was 135 bales. It was 150 or 60 acre field that the Jen overlooked. And then we recommended just a warning letter because Lee Wilson Company, Jen said it was their oversight, it will never happen again, and that's what the Gens are supposed to do. They're not supposed to even go pick up the cotton if the producer has not paid the assessment for the bollweed eradication program. All right, the second one was with Trip, Jen, and Cersei, and they really didn't do anything. Wouldn't try to well, I don't know. It was kind of weird. They didn't respond very well to them.
On Trip to him, they just overlooked it. They're new GN, they're trying to get organized, set up, routines. And had they known this, told me, had they known that those had not been paid, they would have paid the services. And it was just an oversight on their part.
Yeah, wasn't intentional.
Unintentional, yes.
But okay, then we our recommendation was a letter for the Gen, a 3-year probation, and a letter for the Gen to pay the assessment that they were behind on. No penalties involved in that, just the assessment to pay off.
Well, the assessment and penalties that Kroger had are not paid.
Okay, right. And if that doesn't work, then we'll go back and do an enforcement of $50 a bail for the plant. So that was the recommendation of the subcommittee for that one. The third one was similar, RMHN, but no, it's totally different. But RMHN, which is Ritter, Jen and Mark Tree, Ritter and other producers. There was a father and son farming separately, and one didn't have both certificates, and then the son doing the farming refused to pay. So said, I don't know, he just was used to pay the penalty. So there again, we're, recommending the Jen get caught up on the payment and the assessment, or further have a penalty. And do you want me or say anything to add to what I said?
RHM, since the committee had met, it came to my attention that RHM had ginned another grower's cotton using a wrong gin certificate. When the grower had certified or verified acres with us, they had given us an entity name. When we issued rebate checks, the grower came back to us and said he needed a different rebate check with the correct entity, so I got to looking into it, found out that RHM has sent their cotton under a wrong gin certificate. You know, I haven't talked to RHM, I don't know if the inspectors have. I haven't talked to RHM about it since that came.
So I'll need a motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve the recommendation of the Arkansas Boll Weevil Eradication Foundation Subcommittee. So there are two.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the recommendations of the Boll Weevil Committee on their penalties, correct, Sam?
Yes.
Any discussion on these? These, just to make sure, these people have not received these offers yet, so they wouldn't have paid any money yet?
That's correct.
Okay. You're waiting on our approval before you submit them?
That's correct.
Okay. All in favor of the approving the recommendations of the Boll Weevil Subcommittee, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Very good. Motion passes. Sam?
Okay. I'm making a motion to approve this report. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the report, and accept the minutes of the May 6th, 2025 Boll Weevil Subcommittee. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Very good. Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Sam?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Scott Ray, I believe you are up.
Again.
Again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So then I developed the agenda. I added a spot for me to give you all one final vision update and maybe give you all the opportunity to talk to me or ask me or say whatever you might need to say to me. This will be my last meeting, at least on this side of it. But the main thing I want to do, and I'll probably, I want to give you all some information that we may already know, but I just want to make sure going out of here that I highlight the work of this staff and this division. As you saw from this meeting, and unfortunately for the last several years, dicamba overshadows a lot of what we do. And there are people out there's people tuning in that I want to make sure they understand that this division, they do so much more than dicamba enforcement. And I just wanted to visit with y'all and again, remind y'all, that we're organized into 5 different sections. We have pesticides, regulatory services, quality control, the Bureau, and the inspection services. And each one of them has a section manager, and they are all really good at what they do. They know what they are doing. They are all long-term staff, long-term employees, and they run those sections very well. And within each of those sections, there are supervisors, they're organized into programs, and there are supervisors and there are staff and there are admins and there are inspectors. And they all know what they're doing. We have been very fortunate to have an excellent staff. Over the last 6 years, I've been director. Anybody that doesn't want to be here and that is not on the team, they're not here anymore. What you have, what Wes has today is a pretty unified group that they all want to be here. They enjoy what they're doing. They appreciate having this job. They're good public servants and they do their job very well. And I'm not just saying that, I truly mean that. And any of you that work with them, and you all work with them some, and you interact with them and you see the level of response you get and the level of professionalism that how they conduct themselves. And I just want to make it known to everybody watching, that's who we are at Plant Industries. That's who they are. Over the last few years, you know, we've taken on more duties than we initially had. In 2023, we started administering some of the promotion boards. We administered the soybean board, the corn and grain sorghum board, and the catfish board. We administered, I don't have on my notes how many meetings, but we've done 2 years worth of what they really do well is their big funding meetings. And those meetings went very well through our administration and their work. This year, the soybean board, they rewarded $3.8 million in research and promotion for soybean growers. And the corn, $1.2 million for research and promotion and corn production. So there are other promotion boards administered by other entities within the department, but that's the ones that Plant Industry works with. And several members throughout the division. It's been a team effort, have pitched in and helped really well. And we got feedback from those board members. So I feel like we've done a very good job of that. And another thing we started in 2021 is partnering with Workforce Services to do the H-2A housing inspection. And the heavy lifting for that for us has fallen on those field inspectors, the ones you just visited with, the ones we just talked about that have also experienced this overwhelming workload of pesticide related complaints. Last year, they did 1,200 inspections on behalf of Workforce Services. And they have not received any extra compensation or any extra help for that. They just managed to work it. We've also utilized, and Mark Stowe back there, his group, you know, there has to be in-house support for that. So we utilized a couple of staff there. They basically stood up its own database and they track, as well as Workforce Services, those applications and those farms and those farmers. So they've done a very good job of that. Another big program, you know, our peanut grading program, Kyle, you know how that's grown in the last few years. You know, we have a guy that runs that is more knowledgeable than anybody in this state, and he's nationally recognized for the years and the times that he has served in grading. He helped stand up a sheller plant. He helped Missouri stand up a grading plant that they have on behalf of Delta, which is an Arkansas-based group. Steve Boland, he's done a really good job of that. He's one of the most valuable people in plant industries and in the peanut world of Arkansas. You know, and moving on to the sections, the pesticide section, I mean, what can I say? I mean, I don't know what to tell you about them. They have probably taken the biggest hit from the dicamba situation, and they have managed and processed every single one of those cases. Even the ones that don't come before you or don't move on with enforcement action, they still have to be worked. And it's time consuming, it's brain consuming, it's hard work. They have worked, Susie and Lee sitting right there, there have been times they've worked 70-hour weeks doing this. And I want them to be recognized for that and their professionalism through it all.
Thank you.
Another program I want to highlight that a lot of people may not be aware of is that abandoned pesticide program. Brandy, she's sitting back there, she runs that. Just this year alone, they collected over 447,000 pounds of pesticides. And throughout the life of this program, 6.8 million pounds of pesticides have been collected and removed from the environment in Arkansas. So it's a great program. It's funded by industry. It's funded by the manufacturers. So kudos out to them. We appreciate them being cooperative and agreeable to those fees that they get charged for this funding. But it's his staff to make it work. So. You know, I could just stand here all day and talk about, you know, back to Mark's group, you know, there's so many programs that go unnoticed and unseen. Every agricultural commodity gets exported out of this country, requires a vital sanitary certificate. I don't know if y'all know that, but without that FIDO, these things are subject to get hung up in foreign ports, and they can be hung up for who knows how long. We issue those here. We do it on behalf of USDA. Last year alone, they did 1,400 of them. And that also typically requires a field inspector involvement. Those commodities are typically require some sort of eyes-on inspection, whether it's moisture in wood or whether it's to certify it's grown in a pest-free environment, whatever that is. And then just all of the various licensing and registration programs. I mean, there's feed licensing, there's fertilizer company licensing and registration, there's sampling, on and on. The Bureau, you know, last year they inspected 4,400 petroleum pumps, 4,400 small scales. And every one of those things are used to sell a service or a product to a consumer. And if they're not accurate, and if they're not calibrated, and if they're not proper, then somebody's a loser. So again, I just wanted to take the opportunity to make sure and to emphasize what the state of this division, what Wes has, what you all have. You have a great group of people that do a whole lot of work, and I don't know that they get the appreciation they deserve from it. I think they do from you all, but I don't know that they do from out in the general public and the farming community and EPA. And I want to make sure they're recognized. Back to that inspector group. They provide inspection services to every one of these programs. So when we talk about dicamba, what are we going to do, the level of complaints, having to double them up, that alone in and of itself is a day's worth of work. But they still have somehow in some way managed to do all this other work. They provide, like I said, the H2A programs, the seed sampling, the feed sampling, and on and on and on. And we have prepared to utilize other inspector groups to help out with the H2A. But when it comes to pesticide complaints, they're it, and they have to deal with them, and they have responded and worked every one of them. In 2010, we got 189 pesticide complaints, and that hovered in that general area until 2017, and then we went to 1312. And then 456 and 462 and 514 and 565. So yeah, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, and I'm not making excuses for me, but I do want this staff to be recognized for what they do and for how this situation has affected them. When I got here, they were broken. And the situation of an employee, the morale of an employee, the work, employment, health of an employee is one of your most valuable resources. And you got to spend it wisely. And if you don't, it's really hard to earn back. And I hope I'm leaving Wes and whoever comes behind me with a good, strong, fit, healthy, high morale staff behind me, carry on, and all I got to say.
God, I'll say, probably for the whole board, but at least for me. You've been director for 6 years, and I guess I've been doing this for 4 and a piece of those years, and I've appreciated your leadership. And it's not the first time that I've heard you sing the praises of the staff. That's not something you're doing today. That's something I've heard at every meeting. And so I was a little bit worried, well, I wouldn't say replace Scott, but who's going to follow Scott? But I also realize I don't have to worry about that because the staff is here. And, not that you don't do a good job, you do, but I also realize they make you look good.
Well, they do. I've always viewed my job as, they don't work for me, I work for them. They're the ones that do it. My job is just to support them where I can, cheer them on and give them direction. I hope I've done a good job there, but they're irreplaceable as far as I'm concerned. They are why we do what we do very well. And, in 6 years, it's a big job. It's a tough job. And you win some and you lose some, and you have successes and failures. And I just hope that my wins outweigh my losses and my successes far outnumber my failures. I know there's probably been decisions I could have made better, and I own every decision I've made. I've done it with the best information and guidance that I've had available, but I'm sure there's been mistakes, and maybe, I may have to answer with them someday. If I do, I will. But I hope I've done a good job for y'all. And again, you got a good crew here. You got an excellent crew here. They're going to be okay, and the work's going to get done.
Well, I appreciate the leadership you provided to this plant board in that time, because it has not always been fun. And you do have to figure out how to maybe split the proverbial baby. I don't know. Thank you. But I don't think you're done. That's not a goodbye. Yeah. I mean, we still got work to do. Okay.
Yeah, you're right. So under other business, and I'm not sure I brought my copy, and I'm gonna probably have to get Corey to help me. So you all should have a copy of your bylaws there. There is some legislation that has passed, and it will be effective in August, I believe. And it requires every board and commission in this state to have either in their bylaws or in their written operational manual policy, this language. And you will see it in red. It's not controversial. And our recommendation is that you strike your old section 4 and you insert what is in red as your new section 4. And if you have any questions, Corey will be glad to answer.
He'll be happy if you call.
It basically updates our bylaws to handle for Zoom and.
Correct. It does, yes. And it's required legislative. I don't think you have a choice.
Okay.
Consistent with a new act that was recently passed in this legislative session.
Very good. So, well, not that we have a lot of choice, but is there a motion regarding this?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion and a second to do what we know we have to do, and that is amend our section 4 to include replace it with what is in red. All in favor of this?
Aye.
All opposed? Very good, it passes.
Can I say something?
You sure
I'm
can.
sorry.
No.
That's not mandatory. What that allows you to do is to have members of the board participate for purposes of forum and for vote remotely. Otherwise, you would only be able to consider members who are actually physically present.
Apologies. I thought it was one.
It doesn't change our decision, I don't believe. Okay, thank you. Is there any other business before this?
I've got a concern, and everybody in this room should, the news that broke yesterday about the agro threat virus from the China students. You know, you did at the university and head of research, and West did the head of agriculture. In the state, I'm sure we're all concerned about that. I'm sure everybody's aware of what I'm talking about yesterday.
I'm not saying, go ahead, explain.
Two Chinese students, I believe the University of Michigan, and they had a virus in the little
I
zip
saw
bag,
that picture, yeah.
and it threatens many crops. And it's frightening to, if you, I listened to it on the news several times yesterday, just different people talking about it, but it was pretty alarming. Did you hear about that yesterday?
I can, if you'd like, I can give you a little bit of information about that as I understand it. This is Ken Court, sorry, in Fayetteville, but yeah, so this was a fungal disease. If I believe, Mr. Stuckey, we're talking about the same story, but a fungal pathogen that primarily infects wheat, but others can infect other cereals. It's called Fusarium head blight. That pathogen is here in the U.S. It's really unclear why they were bringing it in. It was probably a different isolate or something like that, and who knows what the intent was. And it seems, based on what I read, they knew it. They knew they weren't supposed to be bringing it in. They tried to sneak it in. It sounds like. So anyway, but it is something that's already here. We have that fungus. It is a serious concern. It can cause big problems. But again, at least again, based on the very little I've read about it, I don't know. There's no indication so far that it's really any more, say, virulent or dangerous than the isolates we already have here. At least that's my understanding. So I don't know. I hope that clears it up a little bit. Again, I know about as much as you do, because based on what's been released, or yeah.
It was pretty alarming news yesterday for me, and I'm sure others. Thank you for that update.
Sure.
Thank you. Is there any other business?
I have one question. Does staff have a update on the drone category? I wasn't able to attend the last meeting, so apologies on Susie on that.
You can probably update you better than I can on this.
I did draft a update rule to add drone category. However, that entire rule book is being updated also, some cleanup items. So our hope is to get that to y'all in September. That's the goal, because the U of A extension did say they would need some time to prep test. So I think we're still on pace to have a drone category, depending on, how everybody votes and if it makes it to a formal for 2026.
Okay, and just for some guidance purposes, we had a really great aerial engineer in Arkansas named Dennis Gardner. I'd like to engage him just to help set some standards and give us some guidance on it. I don't know if that needs to be made a motion to do such, but.
I can chime in. We have utilized Dr. Dennis Gardner in the past. He used to be our go-to expert when he was with the University of Arkansas. He now is in the private sector, so we would probably have to pay him. We have done that again in the past. I would have to get with whoever Scott's replacement will be in Secretary Ward, but he is a world-renowned aerial engineer. There's not a lot of them, and he's well thought of. So he's got some opinions. We're getting a lot of questions on capacity of a drone to actually follow the federal label. Not if they are following the federal label, do they even have the capacity to follow the guidelines of the federal pesticide label?
And I'm not certain. I believe he's doing some work in Mississippi now, so it'd be good to not fall behind, that one.
Okay. Very good. Anything else?
You added something about FOIA at the very beginning.
That is why I said that. And I'm assuming, is this what you're talking about when you say FOIA? We have handled that, but I appreciate you reminding me, because I said to remind you. So we have handled that under the new bylaw. We need to set a date for our next meeting. Do we have a proposed date? It need to be September? Okay. It is. What about the 4th? Is that too early? It's good to me.
Probably earlier the better.
Yeah, that's what I think too. Yeah,
Well, when does Labor Day fall this year?
Labor Day should be the first. It's the first. On Monday, the first. So this will be the Thursday after Labor Day. Conflicts?
11. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, not the 11th. The 4th, Thursday, September 4th. Anybody else want to check their calendar? Okay. Make that set then.
Back to 9:30 or stay at 8:30.
We can do 6:30.
You're the chairman, please.
Yeah, we'll be back to 9:30. That's fine. Very good. All right. Is there a motion?
I make my motion.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.